Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I am Arthur C. Nielsen Sr.
And today is our first review of 2025.
Woo! And also potentially the shortest thing we'll review this year. I don't want to call the game too early, but...
Yeah, but I think this might be the shortest thing we've ever reviewed. A couple of things to start the year. First off...
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hey, look at 2025. It's funny. I keep saying this at work, that 2024 felt like 2024. 2025 feels like what people said the future was in the past. 2025 feels like Sylvester Stallone will somehow got like frozen and wakes up in 2025. Like 2025 feels like the future.
And it's Demolition weird. Man reference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Shout out Demolition Man. It's a great
What's funny
movie.
is I bet you the future of Demolition Man was probably not before. It was probably like 2018 or some shit like that.
I gotta look now.
The other thing is during our end of year review, hey, go check out our end of the year review. It was really fun. It was a great one. An hour shorter than the previous one.
2032.
Oh, we're close.
We're almost there.
We're close. Yeah. Hunter messaged me, I don't know, like 15 minutes in and was like, you're saying a lot. I'm like, I know. I don't know why I've been doing that lately. And then I listened to the episode and I say and like so much, I wanted to rip my own throat out and never speak again. So I used to have this little thing standing up in front of me and I don't know why I put it away, but it's been written like this for about a year and a half. It says at the top to remind me not to say and then the next two things say stop yelling and talk slower. And it's a little sign I used to post for myself and I'm going to start posting that again so I can stop yelling, talk slower, and not say so much. That is going to be my resolution for this podcast for 2025. What about you, bud?
Oh, fuck. I didn't have a resolution ready.
You don't need one.
Ask me later.
Resolutions are for assholes. I also, just because I wanted to show off this mug in podcast land, come watch the YouTube. I'm not even look at how dope this mug is. Those that know, it's super cool. If you're listening, go watch the YouTube. So today we're gonna do a review. We're gonna do more reviews this year. We're gonna do more than 28 reviews this year. My goal is to hit 40, and we're gonna start with this game right here, which is Nielsenauts. Nielsenauts. I don't know why I keep saying it wrong. Nielsenauts.
Yeah. It's specifically a reference to the Nielsen ratings and the Nielsen box, part of that company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Television history.
As we get into the game, you'll understand why it's pertinent.
No, you won't.
And I like it. It's a great name for the game. Yeah, love it. So this is written by Chris Ramdeen, edited by Jerk Crater, layout from Sam Sorensen, and cover art by Yomiya. So we'll get into that, and you'll see this page again. But my gosh, the cover slaps so hard. Remind me when we get started here in a second to go full screen on the cover so people can see the whole thing. But it's fantastic. It's also
I have the zine as well somewhere, but I don't have it to hold up like you do.
Yeah. I was thinking about doing the cam for this one, but I'm going to redo the cam a little bit, change some of the light up. So, God, you know how hard it is not to say I'm like, just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. And then I said so. I'm like, I gotta fill this time. It's fun, very small, very light game.
Yeah, this is a good. You and your friends are hanging out in the afternoon, and you want to play a game that's not like as in depth of a tabletop game.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, what's your initial take, I guess?
I like this game. I do. I think it's incredibly lightweight, which I'm always a fan of. Conceptually, I'm really down with this game. I think you need I don't want to say like a specific group of people like I do with some games, but you kind of need a group that's like
bunch of theater kids.
Yeah, you need a bunch of theater kids to play this game. You want an improv like friends, which I think. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to be a theater kid, you know what I mean? But like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think it would help. I think those people
it
will
wouldn't
shine.
hurt.
It's so tabletop role playing games, right? They run they're a spectrum. I wish people acknowledge that a little bit more. It's a spectrum of games from almost board games, or even some board games. Yeah, real bright there.
Too bright?
To basically fucking LARPing, right? And across that, you have things like like skirmish games and things like that, or like Last War, for example, or the whole like Forbidden Psalm thing, where it is a war skirmish game, but there are TTRPG elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the far end, you have things like Fiasco, which is very much, it is a role-playing game. You are playing a role, but it is, a lot of people wouldn't really, some people might not consider Fiasco like a tabletop role-playing game, but there's no dice. It's mostly improv and prompts and things like that. This falls very close to Fiasco. As far as that spectrum, it's way on the end of basically improv.
I never played Fiasco or read it, actually. So
you never played Fiasco?
No, I'm not cool or fun. So
apparently not. But I think you would dig it. It's really it's really fun and interesting. It's basically a lot of people describe it as basically improving a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh, that does sound cool.
Yeah, I think you would dig it a lot. So that's my initial take. Is I really like it. It does feel like an episode of Dropout.
Yeah, a little bit, which I think that kind of works for me.
No, it slaps. I could see Brendan and Josh and gosh, what's his name? The other noise boy?
Zach Oyama.
Zach Oyama. I could see all three of them playing this game and fucking killing it.
Like, because my fiance's off camera, like laughing about this discussion because I watch Dropout so much, and I've made her watch a bunch of me. She likes it as well, but
yeah, Dropout's great. I've watched it so there's no more.
Yeah, so. I repeat episodes all the time. I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, I just put it on as something to have in the background.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah.
Yep. So let's just. I mean, this is gonna be like the shortest thing we've ever reviewed. So let's get into it. Nielsenauts. So again. Obviously a reference to Nielsen ratings. So the game is about TV, right? The cover says Nielsenauts make TV and die. Nice use of an M dash in there. I want to switch the view for those that can see it to a zoom to page level. Look at this cover. My goodness, the art is insane. So for those in podcast world, the Nielsenauts make TV and die is it's up and down against the right side of the cover, so it's aiming to the left. It's not horizontal; it's vertical. And then in the bottom left, there is a pinkish person looking out into the sky, holding their hands up as if in somewhat of a prayer-ish. But they are also attached to a bunch of machinery. It gives me very much Ghost in the Shell vibes. Mm-hmm. Very, very like late 90s anime vibes.
Yeah, and I was thinking there's a couple scenes in X 1999 for anyone who fucking knows what that is. That there's a girl hooked to a robot. It very much gives me the same vibe. So
yeah, I'll have to check it out. It's very much that takes up the bottom, the whole like left kind of quadrant, and then in the sky-ish in the area around are all of these eyes, just a ton of eyes in rows looking down at this figure and then fading away into the distance, and then at the bottom you see Ramdeen, Crater, Sorensen, and what I can imagine is probably I believe kanji for Yomiya, who did the cover art, and one of the best covers I've seen in a while. It goes so hard.
The cover hits so hard. And it's like, I don't want to say like it's out of place, but it's something. I mean, it's great. So.
It's the only piece of art in the entire book.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about. Do you need art? We will get into that, I think, specifically in this episode. So going forward from there. Too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So credits. I do like the beginning. While this book discusses the future existence of virtual consciousness that possess artificial intelligence, no artificial intelligence was used in the creation of any part of this work. And basically says, value human labor, fuck the machine. There you go. My words, not theirs, but that's the gist of it. So again, written by Chris Ramdeen, edited by Jarrett Crater, layout by Sam Sorensen, cover art by Yomiya. In the book, and are links to all of their social medias. And also those are hyperlinked, so you can go to their blogs and websites and things. Love that. That's great.
Big shout out that.
Distributed by Space Penguin Inc. Yeah, absolutely. Always, if you mention a person, your own website, link it to the PDF. And then there's some playtesters, et cetera, and then a special thanks to the writers, cast, and crew of every television show ever made, written by Chris Ramdeen. And And the credits page also gives you a nice little preview into the layout of the entire book. It's interesting.
We're gonna hit my first question actually almost immediately.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to go to the next page or
no? It's on this page. Big gray square.
Big gray square. I'm gonna zoom to page level for this one too. So for those in podcast land, the top in large, some type of like sans serif font, it says credits. Next to that, it's in gray. Next to that is a gray bar that fills the rest of that line. And then about a little bit more than halfway down the page, the writing would end, and then it is just filled with a gray square. And then at the bottom, there's like a line, the number 2, and then a line. So all of the empty space on the page is filled with a gray square. That is interesting.
It is interesting. I actually don't know that I dislike it. I'm like, listen, if there was nothing here and this page just was half empty, would that bother me more?
Yes.
Yeah, it would, right?
We talk about it all the time. We literally talk about it all the time.
Do we think this is an elegant solution to that? Because it happens a couple times.
It happens throughout the entire book, almost every page.
Yeah,
so it is. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is clearly a layout choice, and layout is done by Sam Sorensen. For me, 2 things about it. One, I think it is like vastly superior to just having blank white space.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's elegant. I think it's interesting. I think sometimes it looks like a piece of placeholder for where art would have been.
That's what I thought going through the PDF. I'm like, it has that feel.
It's like, did they forget to drop the art into those spaces? That's the only thing. Obviously, it's intentional. Clearly, it printed. I think it looks great. I think it's very interesting. Anyone that knows Sam's writing and Sam's stuff and things like that, I believe they've even written blog posts about basically saying why does everything need fucking art to be a good game or whatever. And whether I disagree or agree with that, it's Sam's writing is always interesting. And I think this is an example of their philosophy regarding art and layout and things like that, where you don't need a bunch of art to have a good game. And I think that's very true in this. And I think this is an interesting solution if that is your thought process behind it. Yeah. Do I think as we go through that this game could have been more interesting with a couple of pieces of art? I do think there are times where pulling in a little bit of that weird AI space that we're going to talk about and things, I think that could have been really interesting. I think this. Yeah,
you're saying that this game needed AI art in it, really?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because of course we're super pro AI art here on the show. So we'll get it out of the way early and talk about that in the layout. It's interesting. I do like it. I do think it is elegant. I think obviously, the human brain likes art. Obviously, if it didn't, the cover wouldn't slap so hard, right? But I do think that it is interesting. I think it's elegant. I think it's fine for a game of this length. I think if they did this for 60, 70, 80 pages, it would be way too much.
I agree with that.
I think for a game that's 19 pages long, this is cool. It's interesting. It's neat. I wouldn't have. The only thing that I could say is maybe just different colors or something. Like it's just it's a gray. It's gray.
That would be like, I do agree. This is a much better solution than leaving the page blank. I do think it's more elegant than that. But yeah, maybe some color switch as we go through different chapters would have been kind of cool. And to tie that into the layout is like changing the header colors.
A little bit,
but to match the boxes,
Yeah, because you could do different sections in different colors, which would have been neat. But the only thing too is, again, that gray color really gives you the sense that it was that it's a placeholder piece. Like, I think any other color might have not given it that much, but it's such a I don't know why the color. I feel like I could just like grab a picture from wherever and drop it into that box, and it would have like the the diagonal lines across it, and it would fill the space. But again, I think it's really interesting. I think it's neat. I think that people that want a super art heavy thing might not be a fan of it, but I like the layout. I think it's really, really cool. And again, I think as from someone who I believe, and I could be wrong, correct me, who is on the side or has written about not needing art in games, I think this is a really fun, not fun, I think it's an interesting, elegant way to do that. And again, way better than just blank white spaces.
Definitely way better than that.
it really dulls a page down too, because we've talked about before, having a crisp white page is like reading into a light. You know, I think this really actually dulls a page down and makes it much more readable, actually. So, getting past that, we get to another page that's very similar. So basically, introduction. We'll go through the introduction, and then again, the thing is 19 pages long. It's crazy small. So introduction. Corporations have, through years of experimentation to win the content race, found the formula for limitless content: artificial intelligence. How prescient is this? By having artificial intelligence create unscripted, budgetless entertainment in their incredibly realistic CGI worlds, corporations have done away with actors, writers, and production crews, replacing them with disposable virtual workers. Thanks to this new form of tireless free labor, profit margins now exceed anything in television history. So they're doing what every company is trying to do, which is get rid of
nightmare.
Get rid of all need to actually have labor, so that they don't have to pay labor. And I mean labor is like the movement and the people. And we're pushing closer and closer, right? The players, which is people playing, are Nielsenauts. I don't know why I want to say Nielsenauts every time. I don't know why. Nielsenauts. Yeah. They're virtual consciousnesses created to generate television by playing it out in real time using their computer-generated living space in front of an audience of hundreds of millions. But they aren't our tours. No, they're just a step in a process that will one day reach perfection. And that means that one day, sooner rather than later, they must be killed. But don't fret, the data Nielsenauts generate will be carried forward to the next wave of Nielsenauts, repeating it over and over and over, blah, 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 blah. So basically, you are an AI in this system creating television for people, and you need to continue to do that better and better, or you die, and you'll die anyway as the algorithm in the process gets better and better and better. You are a cog in the AI machine that is just there to generate content for the masses, for the corporations. That is an extremely interesting take for players.
Yeah, I think this game is oddly dystopian.
Yes. Oh, not oddly, it's extraordinarily dystopian.
This game is super dystopian, and it's actually it's a fun concept. I'm oh, my friends, I would have a good time playing this. But I'm also the actual dread behind all of us being replaced by AI to create nothing for no one, essentially, because no one will have any money because they will all be replaced by AI. It fills me with dread.
Yeah, it's terrible because honestly, people, especially Americans, are stupid enough to allow it to happen because the dollar speaks, right? Corporations make money, right? So if a corporation is creating AI generated content and you don't want that to take over, you know what you can do? Just not watch the fucking content.
It's true.
Right? You could just not buy into the process. But there are plenty of people out there. You can see it literally every day on social media. People going, yeah, whatever. It's the future, right? It's inevitable. Huh? It's insane. You could just say no. You could just say no to AI.
Such a lazy take. It's inevitable. Right? It's well, yeah, because you accept it as such.
Exactly. You could just not. You could just not. If no one used ChatGPT would shut down because it's already not profitable and it's already destroying the environment. Anyway, fuck AI.
Oh, so, fucking leftist rants.
Right. How to play the game. So to play, you need 2 6-sided dice, 2 10-sided dice, a pencil, and a paper. Boom. That's it. So the gist of it, and I'm not going to read this. I'm going to give you the gist of the gist. You have 15 minutes. Yeah, you have 15 minutes of real time, and it is live television. So when you are playing the game, you are actually live for the masses. So everything you do, everything you say is on television, right? Imagine yourself in a box and everyone is watching, right? You are in the stadium and everything you see and do, including communication with your fellow Nielsenauts. So you do this verbally by describing scenes and actions taken by the characters, as well as directly speaking to the narrative and the dialogue. You are given metrics in order to use to generate the television, both from buzzwords pulled from society and everything going on, and from CEOs, from what do they call it here? The market buzzwords and the executive orders. For you to put this together, right? And in order to put this together, right, you first determine the scoring metrics which will then give you the prompts to start the scene that you have to go with. So there is a little graph here. It's 5 lines. It says A, B, C, D, E, and next to it it says 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12. Right. And how you create a scene. Do you want to just roll one up as we go through this? Do you want to hit down to the prompts and we'll just kind of put one in?
Yeah. Hold on, let me scroll 5 pages down.
For improvising your first episode, players determine the parameters, right? As a team, write down 2 numbered sets of 5 empty slots, which is 2 sets of what I just said. 1 for executive orders and 1 for market buzzwords. And next to each slot, write down the number shown below. So basically create this graph here. Then you roll 5 times on the executive order D100 table on page 13, and you write down the 5 executive orders, and then you roll 5 times on the market buzzwords. You will now have generated 10 entries in total across 2 lists, 1 of each, and it looks like this. My only real issue with this game is it took me a second to figure out what right order meant. Because it's the only time
it's right. I did the exact same thing actually, because it's right executive order,
right,
or buzzword, but it's just right order. I did that for a second as well.
Yeah, it took me a minute to be like, what's the right order? I think it would have been a slightly more clear. It only took me a second. I'm not fucking stupid.
Yeah.
If it just said executive order or buzzword, I think that would make just that one little spot at the bottom of page 4 just a tiny bit clearer. Because I kept looking for, I was like, well, I know it's the executive order, but what's the right order?
Yeah, I did the same thing for a moment. And I was like, oh, it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's the executive order. Do you want to roll up 5 executive orders and 5 buzzwords? All right, go for it. What are 5 executive orders?
So executive order, the first one, we got demographic appeals, because these the D100 executive order list is divided up between like subcategories.
Let's scroll down to that actually real quick, because the game is so we're going to get to it. So let's just roll through. So. Yeah. So the D100 executive order list. Why don't you go through the different categories on the D100 executive order list?
Yeah. So the categories on the executive orders. First one is general. The second one is business oriented. The third one is censorship. The fourth is demographic appeals. The fifth is Bezos. 6th is Campbell. The 7th is 8 sequences / 3 acts. And then the 8th is TV writing formulas. And then the 9th is genre elements must be introduced. Mm-hmm. Some really interesting categories with some really funny stuff in all of them.
They're great. Yeah. So what 5 did you roll up?
So the first one I rolled was under demographic appeals. I rolled 41, which is depressed indie writers and artists. So it must appeal to the demographics of depressed indie writers and artists. Great thing for AI. The next one I rolled was much higher up in business oriented. I rolled 16. A core plot turn involves Smile XM radio.
I love the within the world, there's ad placement,
Yeah.
Because of course there is.
And then I rolled, the next one's under Campbell for 58. Character is in the belly of a whale. And then, what did I say? Belly of the whale was that one. That was 58. Next one, still under Campbell's 55. Character is called to adventure, but refuses the call. I love that there's like the hero's journey, but you can roll multiple times on it and have to involve multiple sections of the hero's journey. And then the last one I rolled above that under Bezos is 46 moral choices.
So the executive orders are obviously things that you need to have in the episode, is like things to do or things to demographics to reach out to, things like that, right?
Plot points to touch on, yeah.
Yeah, which is different than the market buzzwords. So you rolled up. So what are the categories for the market buzzwords we got?
There aren't categories for the market buzzwords. It's all just one.
Oh yeah, it's just, yeah, right. This is one. Yeah. All right. So what are the 5 that you rolled up?
The first one I rolled up is 51 legal proceedings. Then I rolled 32, which is deep statements. And then I rolled 50, which is isekai / virtual or other world.
The worst kind of manga.
And then I rolled 16, class differences. And then I rolled 63, which is mutual misunderstandings. That was 5, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I fucking love the isekais on that fucking list. It's so dumb.
Bro. There's so many good ones like dynasties, aliens, coming of age, mutual misunderstandings, neurotic savants. All of like that is the core of the game, is those 200 prompts basically. And they're all good. You know, you could play forever with that set of prompts. So how are you using those, right? So basically what you just did is you roll up 5 of each, and that's how you're starting the game. This is how you put together your first episode. You can, and it says you can print the score sheet template out on page 19. Love that. So next, the feed goes live and the episode begins. So Nielsenauts are given digital form in a world that they can sculpt and shape just by thinking it into existence. Again, a Nielsenaut is just an AI thing creating live content for the viewers, right? So as a player, there are it's a list of 3 things, 3 principles to keep in mind that are here. What the players say happens. So by default, anything you do exists. You are on live television. So they basically say spoken dialogue or narration is assumed to be happening live, and you should make clear in some way, shape, or form, whether it's hand signals or something, when you're only talking to the other Nielsenauts, so that the viewers can't hear you, or if the viewers can hear you. Number 2 is if a player needs to think ahead, they're doing it on the air. Again, you're live. No matter what you do, you're live. You get one exception, which is a single commercial break that you can call at any time, and that lasts for 2 minutes. Because again, it's 15 total live television minutes. You can get a 2-minute break, and you can use that time to kind of plan ahead. And then the audience expects a bare minimum of continuity. So basically what it says is, in case you survive and continue to do multiple episodes, it shouldn't be just scatter shit. There should be a little bit of continuity between the episodes. So as you're planning your next episode, think about the previous episode and move forward with those things. Is basically what it comes down to. And then when your 15 minutes are up, the episode's credits and mid-credits roll automatically plays. The Nielsenauts become inert and unable to play in the next episode. You can roll the credits early, though, and have that little bit of time within that 15 minutes to plan. I always imagine, when some shows, especially live shows, would cut away and the credits will be rolling over people, but you can't hear the audio anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine happening at that point. And then at the start of the scoring phase... So, one thing that I think I didn't read aloud before...
Oh, right. I don't think you did either.
Yeah. So it says, however, due to changes, and this is part of the gist, due to changes in market data and the CEO's opinions on quality content, some of the metrics will change at the time the episode ends. This means players do not have perfect knowledge of how they will be scored. So remember, when you roll executive orders and buzzwords, you're coming up with a scoring metric, which gives you kind of prompts out of game, but in game, basically saying like, this is how you will be judged if you do these things. But 2 of them change by the end of the episode because the data changes constantly and the CEO just feels like it. So basically what happens at the end during the scoring phase is 2 executive orders and 2 market buzzwords are replaced before the scoring occurs. So you roll 2d6 twice for each list to determine which of the slots is replaced. And then for each replaced, you roll a new entry for that. So that sucks for them.
It does kind of suck.
It's interesting that you only use the 5 prompts, but it's D6s. As you go through, you'll see that the letter C, because it's A, B, C, D, E, counts twice. So for scoring, for points. So if you get C correct, you get double the points. And if you roll, you roll the 2d6. It's a 2 to 12 anyway. And it'll do that. So for example, say the players have generated the following list. We've already generated it. We don't need to do another one. But it says after the episode is over, just before scoring, you roll or determine which ones have changed. They roll a 7 and a 10, which means the entry slot is C. And again, this is example. There's a great example to play here. We're not going to go over that part of it. It's basically explaining what we just talked about. And you do this for the marketing buzzwords, and you do this for the executive order. So that's a total of 4 metrics that change. And once the new metrics are rolled, players self-score the content of the episode according to a rubric explained in the next section. If the score falls below the minimum passing grade, the Nielsenauts are killed and the show is canceled.
Just like real life.
just like real life. Every failed pilot is a murder. If the players determine that they've scored a passing grade, congratulations. You live to create another episode. However, every show must exhibit growth, right? Because what is capitalism? It's just perpetual growth, right? Because that's possible in humanity.
There's nothing wrong with that idea. There's no way that could go wrong.
Right? Not consistent, continuous consistency, right? Just perpetual upward motion. So, however, every show must exhibit growth. Thus, the passing grade goes up every episode. So, when you score, players score the episode after the time is up. They take into account the 3 sets of metrics, which is their own opinion, the executive orders, and the market buzzwords. The scores generated for each set add up to determine the final grade. Remember that executive orders and market buzzwords must be met every episode to count for scoring. Every episode. So even if it seems like they should logically only happen once in a season. So, for example, if you get... It says here, if you establish 2 major characters in episode 1 and that comes up again, you have to do it again in episode 2. Right? Yeah. So players will score the episodes themselves using the following rubric. So there's the internal metrics, which gives you a possible of 30 points. And there's 5 questions that you can ask for that. And this is the... again, for the player's own personal internal satisfaction of what they did. So, number 1, did characters, locations, or concept from previous episodes return? Did interesting or exciting situations emerge that relate to the show's original premise? Did most scenes serve a purpose and deliver on what you believe to be the show's key selling point? Was there a satisfying or surprising ending? Would you watch another episode of this show? So this doesn't have anything to do with the prompts, right? It really is just the quality of the show. And then you can score 3 or 6 points for each. Basically, nothing if you didn't do it at all. 3 if you touched on it, and 6 if you feel like you nailed it. Is basically what it comes down to. So it's a possible 30 points because it's 6 times 5, and that's how math works. Yep.
Yeah, that is actually how math works. So yeah. I do like that it's it's very much like, how do you feel about this? Do you think that you earn 3 points on this, or do you think that you earn 6 points on this? Yeah. I think it'd be fun to play with a very honest and self-critical group that's like, no, I could have done that better.
Or like, yeah, we killed it every fucking time. Then fine, do another episode, and it just keeps getting harder. So the next 2 are pretty straightforward. So it's your executive orders for a possible 36 points. So you basically, you go through the executive orders. So what was one of your executive orders again?
Oh, I've already blanked. I did not write them down. I'm a bad person, honestly. I don't deserve
pick anyone,
to be on this show.
Any single one.
Avoid making any political statements. There we go. There's one.
So if you didn't make any political statements, great, 6 points. If you brushed up against,
can't make any statements at all whatsoever.
Right, right, because politics is all things, not just your version. If you're
being apolitical is a political stance.
Right. If you're not seeing politics in anything, it's because you're only seeing your politics. Anyway, so for example, if you in as much as you can, right? If you don't do any political shit at all, right? 6 points. If you broach politics maybe like a tiny bit, but don't make a big statement about it, maybe 3 points. And if you literally were like, down with capitalism, 0 points, you failed, right?
Right.
That's how you judge the things, right? And you do the same thing for market buzzwords. So that's possible 36, 6 and 6 each. And again, slot C, you score twice as many points for. So if you super fuck up, that sucks. Or if you did well, you can double your points, which is great. And the passing grade for the first episode is 40 points. And then every subsequent episode goes up by 10. So 40, 50, 60, 70. Again, that's how math works. And then but after 100, it doesn't go any higher than that. So you inevitably will eventually fail and die. Is what doesn't that's how it works. If any episode fails to reach the minimum score, the show is canceled, and then Nielsenauts are deleted. You're gone. Big gray box. You know what's interesting about the big gray boxes? First of all, there isn't one on page 7.
I was going to point out, I totally forgot. There is space for one right there. It's the only page that has space and doesn't have a gray box. Right, because on number 6, there's even less space, and they put a box there. I feel like that's a missing box. Man. So that's it. That's the game. That's the entire game. The next section is called the first episode, and it is
No. There's a little bit more. So basically,
there's
this is a primer.
The strategies and stuff coming up too. Yeah.
Right. I forgot. I thought that this was the example play. So basically, this is the first.
Overall, though, that is the game. Like we've just gone over really the game. There's some survival strategies. I think is a good point. But yeah, there's the first episode section as well.
Yeah. So the first episode on the way to the corporate. Okay. Stop yelling. Talk slower. We're working on this, right? You should just give me a tap the sign symbol or something, and I'll slow the fuck down. I had too much coffee and Adderall this morning.
Me too. Well, not Adderall, but
legal crack. One way the corporation assesses the development of each generation of Nielsenauts is through their ability to predict executive orders and market buzzwords. Thus, at the start of each new show, the group may fill one slot of the executive order and market buzzwords list with anything they like, taken from a list or created on their own. I like that. It gives you the ability to control at least one of the prompts, which could also change later because of the way that you roll the scoring metric at the end, which is great.
I think that like this game is like rife for replayability if you are at the right table, because the executive orders and the market buzzwords are like, it's a list of 100. It's a really impressive list, but I know we as people who consume media could create like infinite words to add to either of those lists, you know?
Yeah. You know what this strikes me as is have a couple drinks with your buddies, right? This is charades for theater kids is what this is. Yeah. I would have
way more fun playing this than charades.
Absolutely. I mean, again, this is basically just one giant improv prompt, like turn into a tabletop role-playing game, and I'm all for it. I think it's really fantastic. Giant gray box filling 80% of this entire page. Again, I think this is the fuck you to art, in my opinion. When I saw this one, where it's basically an entire page filled with one giant box, instead of any art whatsoever, I genuinely felt like this was them like saying, we don't need no fucking art. But honestly, I'm gonna be brutally honest about this. As I scrolled through, didn't even notice them.
After my first notice of them, I definitely was like, okay, you know, like it's just I'm unbothered by it. I just thought it was interesting.
I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting choice. I think it's elegant. And again, it's we talked about colors, right? Colors would draw your eye to it. I honestly think this soft gray, my eyes just roll off of it, and you just reading the words of the game and just focusing on what obviously they think is important, which is the words of the game, which is so survival strategies.
Yeah. Ignore that. I just pinned the message. So survival strategies. This is basically just a section for like how the players should try to work together to get the best experience of this game. It says that it literally says, as advanced television creating virtual life forms, Nielsenauts have complete freedom in how they create their content and meet their metrics. However, Nielsenauts who live longer than average have been observed applying the techniques below. Players should use them at their discretion. The list for it's pretty much just kind of rules for like working together. Like Nielsenauts, no Nielsenaut is required to agree with the course another wants to take the story in, but all have to agree on what is physically happening and being shown to the audience. To save time, most Nielsenauts accept what any other adds to the scene by default, only stopping to arbitrate material that could seriously imperil the episode's success. I really do like that rule. It's very much a not like no saying no rule, but it's a yes and kind of thing.
Yeah, which at the end of the day, again, it is improv. Like that's the number one rule of improv is basically don't like just keep going, just yes and everything, right? If you know something, you can see people be like, wait, what? But yeah, just yes and it's improv.
And then many groups designate a Nielsenaut as a director or narrator. This Nielsenaut's duty often includes setting and complicating the scene, assigning roles, and providing narration. That could be cool depending on what your group looks like and how well you guys work as like equal collaborators, or if that's just like a couple things you want to hand off to a certain person. Next one, it is common for groups to create verbal or gestural signals to indicate when they are speaking in character, providing narration, or speaking inaudibly, i.e. only to the other Nielsenauts and not the audience. Super solid rule there. Little hand symbols, is how I think I do it at my table. Next one, some groups take brief notes on what happened in each episode to make scoring and subsequent episode production easier. I would definitely consider just putting my phone on the table and recording.
Yeah. I mean, how much time though are you gonna have between episodes? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine taking notes on what we're doing when you have a 15-minute crunch in which to actively play this and also take notes or whatever. But yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, the scoring stage is separate, right? It's outside of the 15 minutes.
But you have the exactly, and you have the scoring metric.
That's wouldn't true.
Be. And everyone's talking at the same time. So someone could do something and just flip it over, write a little note on the back and flip it back,
Yeah, that's very fair. The next one is long living Nielsenauts. Remember that no single metric is the sole determinant of their episode success, and quickly pivot to focusing on other metrics when it is clear one will not be met. Probably a good advice, And
honestly, I think that is something that people will forget all the time, because you see when people are doing anytime a charades game where they're clearly not going to get the clue, but they keep trying and trying and trying instead of just passing.
Yeah.
Just keep going. And that's
sorry to compare this to charades, but I think it's a very apt comparison. As pivot. We're not going to hit that. Keep going. That's very much in the spirit of yes and still. The forward momentum of improv. And the last one is some Nielsenauts find a way to act outside of the normal parameters of content creation, changing the time limits, adjusting the minimum score to pass, or discarding unwanted executive orders or market buzzwords to suit their own desires. This, of course, in breach of the terms of service of a Nielsenauts existence, and any found engaging in such behavior will be terminated. So a little addendum there at the end. It's what, you guys can mess with and edit the rules, but also that's against the rules. You'll die.
Yeah. I love how every time they talk about dying, it's a different one. I think they said killed, deleted, terminated. There might have been a fourth one in there, but you're just an AI thing. So there's an example. No.
Oh, sorry. I just think all those rules are really great, especially if you're not super deep into any improv culture at all, which I wasn't in theater or anything, but I watch a bunch of improv shit.
We watched plenty of Dropout. We've understood some of the rules at this point.
But it's good to have those written out, and when you read them, I think it clicks just a little bit more. I think this page is a good and meaningful page in this fairly short zine.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the next part is an example transcript, which is literally 3 characters, Sterling, Lindsay, and Chris, going through an episode basically, and then afterwards talking about scoring it. Great, obviously. Having an example of play for something like this, because I think this will be out of a lot of people's wheelhouses that expect any type of traditional, not trad, but any type of more traditional-ish, right, dice and adventure game. Having an example of play is fantastic, and this is a really well-written one. I like it. They discuss a lot of things. They discuss the scoring. It's cool. And then you have the executive orders, which we've already gone over, 100 of those, with I think it's 9 different categories. And then you have the D100 marketing buzzwords. Again, lots of gray. You get to page 19, which is the score sheet. Score sheet looks great. I love that there's the little star next to the C's to remind you to do that. It's basically what was written out earlier, but then there's per episode scores to the side. It only goes to 7 because it goes 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Because that's how math works when you start at 40. You only need to get through 7 episodes to max out at 100. So I would be shocked if someone, it depends. I mean, you have well, can you even get, what's 36 plus 36 plus 30? Yeah, that's like 105. No, what is, I'm dumb. 33 and 33 and 33 is 99. 102. Yes, because 6 and 6 is 12, and I'm a fucking idiot.
That's okay. I did it in a calculator, but I've been up since 4 a.m., so that's my excuse.
So the max number of points you can possibly get is 102. And you need 100 for your last episode.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you're
possible.
Done dead. It's theoretically possible. The score sheet looks great. I think it's super well laid out. They have a show title at the top, so this is your note section right here on the scoring metric. I honestly, printing this out and putting it through, what's that thing where you stick it through and it becomes plastic on both sides?
A laminator.
Laminating this sheet and then using just like a wet erase marker. Great. For those that don't know, wet erase marker, erase markers. Vastly superior to dry erase markers. Love them. Wish more people would use them. Wish we used them at work. And then you have the back of the book, the only not white page of the entire thing. It is a rules summary. It goes through the 7 things. You roll your executive orders. You get 2 timers ready. You improvise the thing. When the timer runs out, you switch up the 4 metrics you have to change. You go through the scoring. If the episode achieved a passing result, you do it again, starting with part number 3, and then otherwise you're killed. And that's the end of the game. That's the entire game. It's 19. It's like 19 pages, right? Probably the smallest thing we've ever reviewed. And I do love, you talked about this, and the first time I saw it, I asked Jared about it too. The Space Penguin ink logo on the back, which is the one they use for usually the spine of the book. Love that. So cool. And it's then, a really cool one. And then Heavy Pepper. I don't know if that is Chris Ramdeen. I don't believe it's Sam Sorensen, so I assume it might be Chris Ramdeen or like maybe their collaborative group. But obviously it's the label for something. I do love the little pepper logo though. It's nice. And a heavy font for Heavy Pepper. It's cool. Good looking book. Again, very short. We're at under an hour, and that's with pre-stream and bullshitting. So let's go to the review scores for this. I have the wrong thing up, so let me get rid of, because this is absolutely
we're not doing the book score for this one.
Oh, you don't want to do a whole book metrics for this? So starting off the year, we are doing for zines again. We quantify our terrible opinions every week. We give numbers to our thoughts, mostly so we can compare. And for zines, we only do 3 metrics versus books, which is 5. We consider anything a zine roughly 40-ish pages or less, and books more. And then the metrics are visuals, rule set, and vibes. Visuals are the layout, the art. It's it's when you look at this fucking thing, what do your eyes see, right? Rule set is, you can probably guess. And then vibes are the visuals and the rule set working together and you wanting to play the game, basically. That's what we say. Like, when you close the back cover, do you say, fuck, I really want to play this fucking game? Those are some good vibes. Does the art or layout tie into the rules? Does it all feel super cohesive? Those are the vibes. And those are the 3 metrics we use for this, up to 10 points each. So visuals, I think this is going to be the interesting one we're talking about, because we're talking about this very interesting layout.
And I will preface this is our first review of this year, and we do have like a new internal like grading metric.
I was gonna say, don't say it out loud. We're internalizing that. Yeah,
we've internalized it. So if you feel like this year some of our ratings might be a little bit lower than they were last year, you might be right. Or whatever. Visuals. I think the cover's amazing. I think the layout is incredibly serviceable and readable. I think the gray boxes is an elegant solution to a problem that we often complain about. I think it's good.
I do think it's good. I think so. I think the cover. I think the cover is great. I think the cover is great, and I think the layout is good. It's just, does the cover pull the layout enough for this to be really good? What are your thoughts?
I like this game. I don't think visually this is what's really popping out for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with good for this.
Yeah. I think. So what number do you think we're gonna go for this?
I'm thinking about a 6 for this. I think it is like a step above average, which 5 would be average. But I don't think it's like blowing me away visually, which is fine.
No, which is fine, because again, I feel like that was kind of the point. And I'm totally fine with that. Again, the layout is incredibly readable, incredibly serviceable, and it's interesting, as I said, as I've read this a couple of times now, that the gray boxes fill a white space that feels like a void, until as you're reading it, again, my eyes would just glazed over them and just focused on the words. And I thought that was interesting, that my mind just kind of moved on from them, so I could just focus on the rules and the wording, which is really cool. Rule set. So this is, at the end of the day, like I said, this feels like an improv prompt made into a game, and I like that. I think it's different. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people that are used to quote unquote more traditional style TTRPGs, more middle of the spectrum, dice, swing sword, kill dragon games, this is going to be a little bit out there for them. But the people that do lean more towards the fiascos and thing, this is perfect for that more improv, more role play heavy side of things. This would make a great fucking stream for a lot of those AP performers out there. They would fucking kill it. Yeah. And because you can do multiple episodes, it's gonna be literally multiple fucking streams, and streaming it to an audience that can't see you would just,
it's very meta, you know.
Yeah, it's meta on top of it. I think it's really interesting. Again, it's very light. I think my only critique is, it's not even a critique, it's more just an observation. It's just so light. It's one thing. I would be curious to see more Nielsenauts, and maybe if they said like, oh, the metric is now changed, we're going to do movies, you know what I mean? Like if there could or would be anything more to this, or if it's not. But also one thing that we talked about in the review that I liked with things like The Job was that when the game is just the game and you can experience this very specific thing, it's not a framework, it's just a thing. And I think this thing does that thing very, very, very well.
Yeah.
I do like it. It's not a rule set thing. The only actual thing that I think would be to change right order to executive order. I don't know where that doesn't fall into this at all. I think that's my only part of any of that. I don't know. I don't even know. It's interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I am always on the side of, I don't think a game needs to do a million things to be a good game, right? Like that's my constant critique of 5e, is that it just doesn't need to be every type of game in one game. That actually makes it all worse. Also, hey, first 5e reference of the year. But yeah, I think it does a thing in an enjoyable way. I don't think there is a massive amount of, obviously it's a short zine, I don't think there's a massive amount of support for people who aren't already kind of familiar with this kind of like improv space in the game.
What more would you want though? Like I do think that the strategy page basically is, this is how you do improv.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it needs anymore, because I'm also very much in the camp of not every piece of media. You are not the target audience for every piece of media. And if someone picks this up and goes, I don't really like improv, I like 5e and just being dragged through a story that someone else wrote, they can just put it down and not fucking play it, right? And I don't think that deserves a critique. I think the people that will lean towards this, pick it up and see what it is, those people will immediately understand and know and want to play that. I don't think there's a big gray area for people that want to play this style of game. And I'm super okay with that.
So give me a number.
Fuck.
I know this is a hard one.
So again, the difference with zines with books, right? And we've talked about this before with something like 9 Lives Valhalla, right? Is there's more, in my opinion, of a focus on, does the thing do the thing it wants to do really well?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I do think that this does the thing it wants to do really well. I 100% know how to play this game, know that I would have fun doing it, and know, just going through the list of buzzwords and executive orders, how weird and strange and cool it could be. You know, the example of play is basically like a zombie apocalypse thing breaking out, you know, but you can do so many different genres and things like that and take it in a million different directions. I think it does the thing really good. I think it does the thing really well.
Okay. So what number do you think?
I'm thinking I think probably about a 7.
I'm at a 7 as well.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So go 7 for that. I think it, like I said, I think it does the thing really well. And I really enjoy it. It's ultra light, but I do really like it. And vibes. What are your vibes at the end of this?
I mean, I definitely want to play this. Going through it, do I think there's like very strong? I mean, there is like this like tongue-in-cheek, funny, dystopian, like AI generated content, and I think that really lends to that as well. And yeah, I think for vibes, I'm at about a 7 as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm also in the camp. I'm not in the camp of a game doesn't. I'm in no camp. some people like
Homeless.
a game doesn't have to have art to be a good game, right? A game doesn't have art to be a good game. But if this game had more art in it, like the cover art, to give just a little bit of inspiration as you're reading the rules, I think the vibes would be way, way higher, right? If there was some pixelated TV stuff, it doesn't even need to be like necessarily illustrations, but just any bit more in it, I think vibes go up, right?
I agree.
I think the layout again is good. It's serviceable. It looks nice, but I do think if a couple of those gray boxes were like just the rainbow TV bar, or, you know, something that gives you a little bit of this is TV, you know, this is AI, this is people watching you, even like eyes, like anything more visually, I think the vibes would be higher for me.
Dan, can I amend my number?
Yeah, of course.
I'm thinking I'm leaning toward, I'm between a 6 and a 7.
Yeah. So, you know, is it good or is it really good? I think it's good. I think it could be really good. Honestly, I would even if the pages were all black and there were these eyes like on the cover throughout, so something was watching you, even that, just a little bit of something, even if they had switched the colors of the pages from just plain white all the time, maybe a black page, maybe a gray page, maybe a white page, anything to keep you pulling through it. I just think that's what really pulls it down for me. Is I totally understand how to play this game, but for people that don't necessarily have the craziest imagination, a couple of pieces in there that tie in the AI-ness or the TV, the artness, I think would have elevated it just a little bit. But also just as, again, what amounts to a prompt to go play the game and you create that on your own. I think it does well. But I think the vibes do come down just a little bit because of the kind of promise that the cover gives, and then what kind of like doesn't show up artistically. Honestly, through the
cover. Immediately when I was going through it, it felt a little disjointed. Because of how hard the cover hits, and then there's no other art in it, which is fine. I mean, a game doesn't need art, but there's also no other like really kind of visual aspect to any of it.
Right. Yeah. Which again, in the game, the prompts are fantastic and can give you good mind pictures. There's a lot of people out there that that apparently don't have mind pictures, which is mind-boggling. But I know many people that are like, I don't see stuff in my head. You know?
Oh, you see stuff in your head? I'm kidding. Could you imagine?
Right. But I know there's people that don't, right? That don't. So just a couple of little things to people go, you know, would have been nice. It doesn't even need very much, but the fact that there's 0 pulls it down a little bit. So I think 6 is a good one for this. Still good. I do really want to play this game. It's really interesting, and I do genuinely think that this is a very AP-able game. I wish some of the...
The moment you said that, I'm now shocked that there aren't a ton of APs this, because it is like the perfect format for this type of thing.
Literally the perfect format. We should just let some of all those AB people that we interact with on a regular basis know that, like, hey, this is perfect, and you should play this on stream.
You mean those Dungeons and Dragon actors? I'm
actual play performers. Oh, bro. Don't even. So, as I always do, despite the fact that I know how math works, I'm going to do 6 plus 6. Nope, not 6 plus 66. I forgot how to add. 6 plus 6 plus 7 equals... that's going to be a 19.
It is.
So, 19 for the first one of the year. Good, fun, interesting game. The other fun thing about this too is it's only 15 minutes. So if you just wanted to do 1 or 2 episodes and then move on, you could easily do one, hopefully survive, get your feet wet, and I bet you the second one would just blow it out of the water. You know, it's kind of like changing a tire or doing the brakes on your car. The first one, an hour. The second one, 15 minutes, you know?
I definitely think it's also the type of game where if you're like, hey guys, let's just try this. It'll take 20 minutes. We'll read through the rules real quick and then 15 minutes to play it. The moment you got done with episode 1, I bet you almost everyone you're with would go, we can do 1 more episode tonight, you know?
Oh, I guarantee they would do that 18 times. I guarantee they would do that. Like, I think people would get to a point, especially after like a drink or two, where you're setting up backstages and shit, and like the next group is like coming in and stuff like that. I think this game would be this is an insanely good party game. If you have like 6 to 10 people who are down for improv or have had a couple of drinks, this would be great. The interesting thing about this too is for like I don't want to call them normies, the people that don't know TTRPGs and stuff like this. You could like, people don't think charades is a tabletop role playing game, but at the end of the day, like that's really what it is. I think people that
I'm not gonna keep going.
Monopoly.
Fuck you.
I think that you could really pull a lot of people in that are like, I don't really want to play Dungeons and Dragons, and then be like, this is like a weird side intro into tabletop role playing games. I think there's plenty of people out there that would enjoy the party game aspect of potentially of this. So, good, fun, interesting game. I really enjoy it. This is once again is from Chris Ramdeen. Edited from Jarrett Crater, layout by Sam Sorensen, cover art by Yomiya. You can get it right now over on Space Penguin Inc. I'm sure they still have it. I know I have like 2 of them. Really fun, interesting game. I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend everything at Space Penguin. Obviously, we do a monthly episode with Jert, and this we did briefly touch this, and I'm glad that we got to talk about it on the show. This is definitely going to go into let's try to run this on the show this year. I think this would be fun. And that's going to be it for our first episode. Not a first episode, because that was yesterday. Our first review of the year. We're going to try to do more zines, more total games overall. This is the first one. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Is that all we have to say? Is that literally all we have to say?
Yeah,
cool.
Do we have nothing?
So, well, I have no idea what we're going to do next week.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, you might have watched the episode prior to this, but if somehow you missed it, I highly recommend the episode that I recorded yesterday, which will probably come out before this one, was what we are now, I guess, a writing seminar series. We had 2 episodes with Liminal Horror, with Goblin Archives, and Josh Demansky. And now we had Watt on doing a kind of a writing seminar on writing literary adventures, what they mean by that and what that means for Cloud Empress. It was a really fun, interesting presentation and conversation afterwards. I highly recommend going and checking that out if you like Mothership, Cloud Empress, Watt, adventure writing, any of those things. Go and watch that episode. But follow us where you normally follow shit on the internet. I don't need to explain it to you. We will see you next Friday, and expect Jert on for Space Penguin Inc. and not Cat Chats number 10 at some point. At some point.
All right.
We'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye.